Greetings, traveler. Have you ever felt sadness when you're working on a game project or when you're working for a game company? I'm not talking about the sadness that is momentary and it passes or it happens in other areas of your life. I'm talking specifically about this very deep, very constant feeling of sadness sometimes you might feel when working on a game project, and it seems that no matter what you do about it, that feeling just won't go away. But stick around because I'm going to tell you how that feeling is going to become your biggest fan and cheerleader. So, today what I want to do is describe first how I experienced this feeling throughout my career. Then I want to talk about the hard mode of dealing with this, all the things I tried and simply couldn't get rid of that feeling, although they did look like the thing to do at the time. And finally, I want to talk about the easy mode of dealing with this emotion and how to use it for your advantage, because trust me, it's there to help you. My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 13 years now, and in multiple points of my career, I felt this very, very deep sadness when it came to work specifically. I didn't understand what that feeling was coming from at the time. I thought that it's just, one of those things feelings do, they come and go. But it happened in one project, and then a couple of years later in another project, then a few years later in a different company with different people, and it would always rise in the same circumstances. So I felt that, I had to do something about it, but it's just a feeling. I didn't know how to react to it. So first, let me try to describe what that felt like for me. So there was situations at work that I wasn't happy about, either around my particular task or things that the team was doing in general. Some practice I wouldn't agree with, some sort of workflow I wouldn't like, or I would request something to be able to do my work better and that request would be denied. There would be times where we would be required to pitch a new game idea, and even though my idea seemed to fill all the requirements, it was still rejected. And this is not to say that that was right or wrong of the team to do, right? That's not the point here. Sometimes it was the right thing to do. We're talking about specifically the feedback I got emotionally from that. So that's sadness. So the way I experienced that feeling was that no matter what I did, it didn't seem to matter. It wasn't exactly desperation and it wasn't depression. It was something different. It felt like I just wasn't happy to be in that place, in that situation. So first, let me go into the hard mode of how I tried to deal with it at the time. So the way I tried to deal with it was basically to ignore it and say that, people are people, we have feelings, they come and go. This is one of them. There's nothing in particular I have to do about it. I just need to focus on other things so I can take my mind off it, essentially. That didn't work for me because, as I mentioned, that feeling was very long lasting. It wasn't just something that happened for just 1 minute or 1 hour or one day. It would go on for months. So the next thing I tried to do was basically think that, in every project, in every company, there's all these difficulties, and of course things don't go as you want them. And regardless of whether you're right or wrong to have your beliefs, these things just happen where, things just aren't as you wanted. The team doesn't do what seems to be the right thing or the right workflow or the right project, all these opinions we might have. So it's normal to accept this strange, seemingly, way of doing things as normal, and with it, accept the sadness that came from it. So I would accept that it's normal to feel very down and not happy, just not satisfied with the current condition. This is normal and expected in basically any work situation, at least in the games industry, as I experience it. So I thought that by accepting it and just plowing through it, I would essentially arrive at a place where this feeling would go away and I could enjoy what I was doing again. That also didn't work. This was also part of me trying to play life on hard mode. because it didn't matter how much I tried to ignore that feeling and plow through, because it would come back. And this wasn't something that I could resolve in 1 or 2 projects. It took me a long time to notice the pattern when that feeling was arising and try to understand why it exists to begin with. So, as I mentioned, sometimes I was wrong about the opinions I had about how we should be doing things or what project we should be doing and so on, but sometimes I was right. The more important thing of this is that that feeling of sadness would arise in both situations. So it wasn't about me being right and then that feeling going away. It was something else. It was something different. So as I searched my feelings deeper and deeper, I found out that I was feeling that sadness because I knew that I could do something about the situation and I wasn't doing that. So for example, if I would propose a feature and it would get rejected, I would get this sadness. And if I simply let the situation go like that, I would have that feeling of sadness stay with me. Or if I proposed a new workflow or pitched a new idea and again things didn't go how I imagined, again that sadness would appear. So I think it was part of me just not being convinced that the way the team was doing things was the best one. And another part was just me not doing all I could have done, not spending as much effort as possible in this initiative, in this idea, and so on. There came a point where I actually thought that to improve the state of the game we were working at the time, what was necessary was not better ideas or better workflows and so on. It was, according to what my superior said at the time, simply more effort. I've made a video about hard work already, so you might know how this is going to go. But basically, during that time, for a good 3 months or so, I took that advice to heart. I stayed with the sadness and I would work literally, every day, all day for 3 months. So wake up, go to work. When I couldn't work anymore, go home, sleep, and repeat that for 3 months. Now, of course, anybody who's worked anywhere knows that's not the way to work, and I discovered that as well. I found out that my performance dropped drastically over those 3 months, and even though my managers, well, especially because of the culture in Japan, felt that they needed to support me in this effort I was putting in, and they did notice the effort, they were supportive of this. They thought, oh, I'm trying so hard and good for me. But that wasn't satisfying at all to me because I could tell my performance was dropping and I didn't want to be complimented by managers. I wanted to make good things. That's the whole point, right? So again, I would have that feeling of sadness during that time with me, and I thought, you know, even when I'm doing what I'm told, this feeling doesn't go away. What if this feeling is trying to tell me something instead? What if this dead end that I feel that I've arrived to, and it seems to be continuing on for months, is trying to, my feelings are trying to tell me something about it in the way that they can. I don't know if this is the subconscious trying to tell us something. I don't know if that's how feelings are supposed to work. But basically, here's what I did to enter the easy mode of dealing with this. The moment I recognize this pattern and this feeling for what it is and when it arises, and I decided to take some sort of action to get out of the situation that I considered problematic, that is exactly when that feeling of sadness immediately resolved. So if I thought, for example, that the game needs a feature that I proposed but it got rejected, then I would essentially try to chase down the reasoning behind this. And the reasoning behind this was entirely correct in many cases. So I was very wrong to suggest what I suggested because I was lacking some crucial information that other people in the team had. So simply accepting the answer didn't seem to work for me, but trying to chase down the reasoning behind it did resolve that feeling I was getting, did resolve the sadness, and I could not only feel better again, but also understand the situation better and and make better suggestions and move on. Also, in other places that I worked, when I got that feeling of sadness again, I discovered that if I took action and I chased down the reasons why my suggestions wouldn't work, why the team was organized in such a way, why we had these workflows or we were going after these projects, why we had these methodologies, when I chased down that line of reasoning and the reasons behind those choices, I found out that yes, indeed, that was not the best way to be going about that particular game project. So in that case, I suppose you could say I was right, but that wouldn't change the status quo. That wouldn't change the structure of the team or what we were doing. So what could I do about this? For one, I would decide to take action and try to talk to managers and so on, specifically about how we can change the situation. This already helped to make the feeling of sadness go away to a big degree. However, when I realized that for various reasons, nothing could be done to change the situation in that particular company, then the answer would be that, well, the only answer is that if I don't like that company or that project, I should quit. Now, typically when we hear that, everybody wants to fight back against it. We want to show that we're not going to quit, that we're going to try harder, we're going to power through, show our worth, all that stuff. At least that's what I thought at the time. But I chased it to such a point that I realized that, it's not about who's right and who's wrong, is that team and that company had a particular direction they were going towards, and that was simply different from my direction and where I wanted to go. So quitting in that case didn't mean that one or the other party was wrong. It's just we're going to different places. Of course, we cannot be in the same vehicle. It just made so much sense. So because of the uncertainty around that time, I wouldn't be entirely without that feeling of sadness. I would still think, is this a right choice? Was I doing the right choice to abandon this project and say, look, this isn't for me. You guys are doing something different. Best of luck with it, but I have to do something different as well. And I would then search for another position, search for another company, another project, and join that. Before I made that switch seemed like the hardest thing in the world. For me, it was very difficult to imagine being in a project, having a stable job, having my salary, and just because I was dissatisfied with it, that would be reason enough to just abandon all that and just go to another company, right? That seemed like a very absurd thing to do. But that's what that feeling of sadness was trying to tell me. This isn't working for you. Do something else. It's profoundly simple, and it's the whole reason why negative feelings are negative, in my opinion, to tell you that, look, this isn't it. This isn't working out. Do something else. And I didn't want to accept that very simple, very profound truth in that situation. I just wanted to power through. But after exploring all the options, there was literally nothing left for me to do. I spoke to my manager, I spoke to the group leader, I even spoke to the CEO himself. And that was the same conclusion all the time. There was nothing to be done on my side other than change my environment, change what I was chasing after. Long story short, after I went through the very standard process of looking for other positions, applying there, talking to recruiters, talking to the people in the other company and so on, after making that switch, I immediately adapted to the new environment. I adapted so quickly, I surprised myself. I basically couldn't remember clearly my thoughts and my feelings thinking about my previous workplace and how odd it was and how I was trying too hard to achieve something that was not going to happen, and how much smoother the situation seemed at my new workplace. Of course, all this sadness was immediately dissolved because I took the action that I deemed necessary in that specific environment. So from that moment on, I learned to recognize this feeling of sadness not as something that is natural, not as something that I should keep with me, like a nail that's in your arm and it keeps, hurting and it keeps bleeding, and you think, yeah, I should probably leave it there. No, take it out, treat it, do the reasonable, logical thing. That's how I felt I could deal with the sadness, make it go away, and in the future use it as a warning sign that, look, something in this situation is not right. Perhaps you can resolve it, you can try that. If you can, that's cool. If you can't, something needs to change about the situation. And if the situation can change, perhaps I can change. So it looks like a big burden, it looks like a big obstacle to overcome at the time, but what I can promise you is in 100% of the cases where I had to make that switch, immediately after making it, it was completely unthinkable to me that I stayed in the last situation that was so difficult and so sad for me for so long. So perhaps someone out there is in a similar situation right now. They're in a very tough spot. They're thinking, there's nothing I can do. Everything I try just fails. I just feel sad all the time. What could I possibly do to change this? So if this video gives you a couple of ideas for things to try, I will be more than happy. And also, if you experience sadness differently in the workplace, please let me know, because I know that a lot of people are experiencing this, and it's of course viewed negatively in society, which I think is also perhaps unnecessary. And please let me know how it feels for you as well. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And as always, have fun.